Hi everyone. Welcome to Certified Horsemanship Association Preparing for Instructor Certification webinar. My name is Laura Jones. I'm CHA clinic staff. I've certified as an instructor in 1999. And one of the reasons why I get to do this webinar for you, I really believe strongly in the benefits of having some preparation ahead of time for your instructor certification. In 1997, I attended a two-day workshop called Preparing for Riding Instructor Certification, and that was very, very helpful to me when I certified as a CHA instructor. I knew what to expect as I walked into that clinic. So I asked CHA if they would mind if I presented this on their behalf, and Christy Landwehr, our host today, was very gracious to allow me to do this today. So Christy, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Unmuted.
Hi everyone, my name is Christy Landwehr and I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Certified Horsemanship Association. I'm very happy to be starting this webinar series. We're going to have one of these a month for all 12 months this year. So I hope you enjoy our first one, and we're thrilled to have Laura here today to be able to help us, not only because she's clinic staff for us and been a certified instructor for years, but also because she's really good at this GoToWebinar software. So as we go along today, if you have any issues or problems, please do go ahead and type it in the question box and we will try to help you.
Okay, so I wanted everyone just to see my face, but I'm going to go ahead now and turn off my webcam. And the reason for that is that it will help some of your screens load a little bit more quickly. So this screen that I have up now is just to show you a little bit about GoToWebinar. In GoToWebinar, there's a toolbar. It should be over in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you don't have a toolbar, you might find a little orange arrow in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. That will hide or show your toolbar. So clicking on that orange arrow will enlarge or narrow your toolbar. There are two tools that you as attendees have. One is a hand-raising tool. It's just in the bottom of that toolbar. And the other thing that you have is a question box. So as we go through this webinar presentation, what Christy's going to do is she's going to keep her eye on the question box and answer questions as you go along. So if you have a question, by all means just type it in. If you need some other attention, you can raise a hand. So if we're not answering your question, you can raise a hand. There's also just a couple of questions that I have for you ahead of time. So Christy and I can see who raises and lowers their hand. So what I'm wanting you to do now is just a hand up. I'm curious to know how many of you are already teaching riding. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about half of you are already teaching riding. That's wonderful. If you click the hands down tool again, then that'll remove the hand. Perfect, guys. Okay, and second question, of those of you that are here, how many of you are planning on attending an instructor certification clinic within the next 12 months? Okay, wonderful. So we've got, again, just a little bit more than half of you. That's wonderful. Okay, well, you've come to the right place. Okay, now just before we get started, the next thing I want you to know is that if you at any time in this webinar have problems with your webinar sound, you can phone in. You can use a telephone to phone in to hear the webinar presentation. And this slide that I have up now has the phone number and the access code. And I'm going to suggest that you either take a screenshot of that or that you write this down. That way you won't lose the information. I will also let you know that we are also recording the webinar, and it will be up on the CHA YouTube channel a couple of weeks after this presentation is completed. Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk a little bit about CHA, and we're going to look at the CHA level system. We're going to discuss in detail the clinic process, so some specific information about what happens in clinics, a clinic evaluation lesson, the way our candidates are evaluated for instructor certification. We'll be talking a bit about safety in those clinics, and then lastly we'll be looking at how you can go ahead and plan your clinic. Now, one of the interesting things about CHA. CHA was formed in 1967 by a gentleman named Don Hemphill. And Don ran a Girl Scout camp and hired people to work for the year, for the season. And he had a problem. And this was his problem. He would get people coming and telling him that they were intermediate or advanced riders or beginner riders, but everyone had a different definition of what those terms were. Someone might say they were a beginner because they'd only been jumping a year. Someone might say that they were an advanced rider because their family had horses when they were younger. So what he wanted was a way of being able to certify people's skill both in riding and teaching. So 1967 CHA was formed. CHA is a non-profit organization. It's the largest equine instructor organization in North America. It has really good industry credibility. It's been certifying instructors for over 40 years. Insurance companies partner with CHA and recognize CHA certification primarily because of CHA's focus on safety. Some insurance companies also do give discounts for CHA certification. There's one thing just before we get into a little bit about our levels. A really important thing to know about CHA is there is no set CHA way to teach. As clinic staff, I look for three things in your lesson. I look, is your lesson safe? Is it fun? And is it effective? Okay, so Christy, this is where I'm going to mute my mic and I'm going to ask you to talk about our CHA level system. Just let me know when you want me to advance the slides.
If anyone cannot hear me, if you would go ahead and let us know, and we can certainly fix that at this time. Okay, looks like no hands. We must be back in business. So there are levels within CHA certification. So when you go, much like Laura was saying, what we care about is safe, effective, and fun. So you can come from a varied background, all kinds of different things, breeds, disciplines, types of people that you yourself have worked with to put together the way that you teach. The 4 levels are assistant, meaning that you can go ahead and be certified to be an assistant to help another CHA instructor while in the arena or on the trail. There is level 1 for arena riding for our standard English and Western certification, which is about 80% of what we do currently. That's going to be your walk, trot, your stop, start, steer, those kinds of things that you're teaching to either youth, kids, or adults. Level 2 as an instructor, you're now moving up. You're starting to teach not just kind of day camp things, but possibly people that are coming to you weekly, possibly they're campers that are returning for years, or you have a riding program or you work at a barn that has regular weekly lessons. So now we're starting to do first canter, first lope, and do a whole lot more at the trot in regards to balance, cueing, and control. When we move on into level 3, now we're starting to do things along the lines of what is a lead exactly, and how do we control that canter, how do we control that lope. You're going to have a whole lot more theory at this level. A big believer in theory at all levels, but at this level it's going to be a lot more whys. Why do we do the things we do? And then finally, level 4, these are your specialists. These are the people that when you are teaching them, they want to focus on a certain breed or discipline. You're probably going to be doing now some simple and flying changes of lead. You're going to be doing much more lateral work, like yielding and whatnot. You'll also be doing, some jumping at this level. You can have beginning jumping all the way down in level 2, but this is going to be more your cross-country, more of your advanced stadium jumping, your reining patterns, and your more advanced horsemanship patterns are things that you're teaching to students if you're a level 4 instructor. Some of the other levels when we move on is you can, at our standard certification, achieve what's called level 4-4 in both English and Western with jumping. We do allow for those that don't teach jumping to be able to achieve a 1, 2, 3, or 4 in flat work only. And with that, you can become what's called a master instructor if you do get 4-4 English Western with jumping. And then you can also go ahead and be recommended as a clinic staff person. Our first one is called an ACI, or an assistant clinic instructor, and that's because your evaluation skills during the process were spot on, you were kind, but were able to say things clearly that needed to be said constructively to your fellow participants, since you all get to evaluate one another during the week, which of course Laura will be explaining more in just a moment. And then once you've attended at least 2 clinics under 2 different clinic staff in 2 different locations, you can be recommended to be a clinic instructor and go ahead and help train the trainer for us.
We like to have people like that. Thanks, Christy, very much. Okay, so let's look at the clinic process and what happens in the clinic process. A clinic process, a standard clinic, is a certification event, and we're going to be looking at your skills as a group riding instructor. You could certify English and Western in the same clinic, in our standard clinic. A standard clinic involves a minimum of 40 hours of time, typically over a 5-day period. Some people will do it in a 4-day or 4.5-day period, so it really depends on the setup of the host site. If you have to miss some of that clinic, you will not be able to be certified unless you can attend the 40 hours. Minimum age for an instructor is 18 years old. That's on or before the last day of the clinic. So if you are booking a clinic, make sure that your birthday falls on or before the last day of the clinic. Assistant instructors have to be a minimum age of 16 on or before the last day of the clinic. An adult can also be certified as an assistant instructor. And again, Christy talked about the 4 levels. So in a standard clinic, all 4 levels are being evaluated. Typically, within a clinic, the schedule is set by the local clinic staff, but an important thing to know is that they may modify the schedule partway through. So even if they give you a schedule, they might modify it partway through. There could be some weather events happening that change that. But a minimum of 20 hours of the time in the clinic is going to be spent on your sample riding lessons. So you and the other participants are going to teach a minimum of 4 evaluation lessons. They're called evaluation lessons because your skills as an instructor will be evaluated. 3 of these, as a minimum, will be mounted lessons, and 1 will be an unmounted lesson. When you're not teaching your own lessons, what you're going to be doing is you'll be riding in the lessons of other participants, and you're going to act the part of their student. There are also a minimum of 5 workshops, and there may or may not be a skills evaluation section. Now, this is an important thing to know, is that in a clinic, all instructor candidates are going to pass each instructor level, starting with level 1, and that's before they're tested for more advanced levels. So every single instructor starts at level 1. So if you're coming to a clinic thinking, this is great, you know, I'm riding at level 4, I teach level 4 all the time, know that your first lesson is going to be at level 1, because when CHA certifies you as an upper level instructor, they're also saying that you are also capable of teaching all the other levels. The criteria that CHA uses to evaluate you is a sheet here. Don't worry if you can't, when this screen loads for you, if you can't see this standard evaluation form. I'm going to be going over each of these 5 categories in more detail: safety, horsemanship, teaching skills, group control, and professionalism. And during the clinic process, you have 2 clinic staff that will evaluate your skills. You'll get a chance to have a private mid-clinic conference with them and a final conference, and clinic staff welcome you to discuss clinic issues at other times with them. And your clinic information, your certification level, your scoring is going to remain private unless you choose to share that information. In the safety category, your score needs to be a minimum of 7 out of 10. And you're evaluated on your knowledge of rules and procedures, that you can demonstrate and enforce rules and procedures, that you show leadership in that your personal safety habits are spot on. So if you have somewhat lax personal safety habits at your own barn, and I have a friend who says, you know, once you know the rules, you can choose to break them when you want. And I believe that privately, but when I have a student in the barn, my safety rules are spot on because those students are modeling themselves after my safety. So CHA places a very high level on this. And
Just
last thing in that,
for a moment, Laura.
oh, certainly,
I'm just going to
please.
interject for one moment. In regards to safety, it'd be things like going underneath the horse's neck when the horse is tied. Things like that unfortunately we see a lot of people do just because they get so relaxed and calm around their own horses, and we just want to make sure that none of those things are occurring when you have clients around.
Right. Okay, and the last thing is that you are positive and calm in problem situations. Not that there'll be a problem situation in your clinic, but one of the things I know I as a clinic instructor like to do is I like to stage a safety issue in an arena. So it will be a mock safety issue, very similar to how in a first aid class you will do a mock first aid enactment scenario. Okay, in horsemanship, we're looking at your tack adjustment and fit, your unmounted horsemanship ability, your own riding ability, and your knowledge of theory behind the skills. And if you are certified as, let's say, a level 2 instructor, we're looking that your horsemanship is in level 3. Your horsemanship, you want to have your horsemanship skills at least one level above the level of certification. For teaching skills, we're looking at your preparation and organization of material and your utilization of resources. Can you present appropriate material creatively and clearly? Can you identify problems and find solutions to those problems? Do you effectively evaluate lessons, situations, and people? Group control, we've got voice projection. Your communication is your eye contact. Are you age appropriate? If your audience is supposed to be 8 to 10-year-olds, of course you're teaching your fellow participants. But if your audience is 8 to 10-year-olds, you don't want to use a whole pile of terms like cadence or transition. You might explain things a little bit more simply for that level of audience. Do you demonstrate control of your group in the riding arena? And I'll explain more about that when we talk about lesson, but it may be just something simple as giving a preparatory command, like on the count of 3, I'm going to have everyone stop. 1, 2, 3, and stop. If there is a trail ride, and sometimes the standard clinics do involve going out on the trail, do you demonstrate group control on the trail? Sometimes in standard clinics, there's not an opportunity to do that. Your score would be not applicable in that area. The last thing in group control is, do you use your assistants well? In professionalism, how do you implement the CHA standards? Are you professional in appearance and presentation? Are you mature? Are you consistent? Do you have a positive attitude? What are your interpersonal relationship skills like? And I like this one, do you show respect and empathy for the horses? So each person has a different evaluation profile. So I'm going to tell you a story about Susie. And Susie was 17 when she came to one of my clinics, and she'd owned horses and ridden for as long as she could remember. And Susie enjoyed going to local horse shows and riding with her friends. And one of her friends worked at a summer camp and suggested that Susie get a job at that same camp working with horses. So Susie went to that camp, applied, and the camp director was really pleased that Susie had some practical horse experience, and that camp had a policy to send their horsemanship program staff for certification training. So Susie had very little preparation. She didn't really know when she even went to that camp that she would be certifying as an instructor. So she came into the CHA clinic, and she came in with a great attitude. She learned a ton, and one of the most important things that she told me she learned was that there's so much more to know about teaching riding than she knew before the clinic. So she's certified as an assistant instructor in that clinic because since she was 17, she couldn't certify as a full instructor. So she worked at that camp. She had a great experience. She's told me that she's looking forward to working at camp next year. And she had started to take some more riding lessons to become better at instruction, and she was looking at certifying at level 1 or 2. Okay, now our evaluation lesson. So this is where we spend the bulk of our time in our clinics at a minimum of 20 hours. Mentioned before that you're going to teach those 4 lessons. It's important that in your lesson, what you want to do is you're going to be teaching groups of riders. So even if you look in this bottom picture here, the one with that English arena, those fences are high. They're set up there to do some form, it looks like some form of horse. So that would typically be a level 4 lesson. But you'll notice there's still a group of riders. CHA is certifying you that you're able to teach a group lesson program at the different levels. And again, we're going to be looking at safe, fun, and effective in terms of evaluation, and not that you teach riding a certain way. Okay, so here's the clinic process. Here's a clinic evaluation lesson. You give a background scenario. Then there's the meat of your lesson, which is 5 different components: an introduction including a safety check, a demonstration, practice and conclusion, and a lesson evaluation. And this is where I'll just quickly mention that there is a CHA YouTube channel. We'll be sending you a link to that afterwards. One of the really good things about this is that you can see some sample lessons, so you can actually watch sample lessons. Okay, when you give a background scenario, you're giving the background scenario to your fellow clinic participants because they're going to be the actors. It's like you're providing a script to them. So their role is going to be your student, and you want to give them specific information about who you're teaching so that they can do a good job acting for you. An example of this is you're going to be between the ages of 12 and 14 years old. You're level 1 riders. You have had 5 lessons. Everyone can stop, start, steer. You know about safety. We've gone over some safety rules. Everyone has had a chance to do one at a time trot, and today we're going to be doing our first group trot. So you're giving, again, people information about what they know and also what they don't know. So your riders will know, hey, we've not trotted as a group, and we're level 1 riders. Okay, so that's preparing your instructor, and now your lesson introduction. You want to keep this section, if you can, to about 3 minutes. You have, for these evaluation lessons, these are 10 to 15-minute lessons that you're teaching. So you're teaching, it's almost like a segment of a lesson. In your lesson introduction, you want to be brief and thorough, and it's really helpful to practice your lesson introductions. You're going to introduce yourself, your assistant, the topic, key learning points, and exactly what you expect the students to do. So here's an example of a lesson introduction. Welcome, my name's Laura and I'm your riding instructor today, and this is Joan, and she's an assistant instructor who's also helping today. Okay, today we're going to work on balance with the horse. So when we're balanced with the horse, they respond better to our aids, and balance is a key to all advanced riding. The topics for today's lesson are middle and balance. So what do I mean by those terms? Middle means this. It means that we're in the center of our horse side to side. So imagine you're wearing a jacket with a zipper up the front, one that's in the center. And if you're in the middle, your zipper is going to line up with your horse's mane. Balance means that our weight is above the horse's center of gravity, front to back. So when I say middle, I mean the middle of the horse side to side, and when I'm saying balance, I mean right over our horse's center of gravity, front to back. So today, we're going to be working on balance and middle with the horse as we ride at the walk and the trot, as we change from halt walk to trot, and as we ride circles and turns. Hey, Christy, anybody have any questions at this point?
You know, it does not appear to be so. I've been looking, and as of right now, no. I just sent out a message to all that by all means you can type in questions anytime you'd like, but I think right now you're explaining it very well.
Okay, well, jump in anytime here. Safety is a really important thing to CHA. It's a continual thing. Our riding students are really unaware of their risks in riding. They may not know even very basic horsemanship safety. We get you as CHA instructors in your evaluation lesson to perform a safety check during the introduction. There's actually a 5-point safety checklist. I'll be going over that in a little bit. But we want you to have a continuous awareness of safety throughout your lesson. So safety isn't just something that you pay attention to at the beginning. It's a continual thing throughout your lesson. When we're doing a demonstration, will be less than a minute. You want to do a very quick demonstration, and we do this because some people will learn best by watching. I've put young riders on this slide because young riders in particular learn best by watching, but people of every age, I've discovered, really do learn best by watching. So how can you do a demonstration in less than a minute? There's a couple of tricks. First of all, you could have your assistant, either mounted or unmounted, demonstrate the activity. So if it's a pattern, they could walk or jog through the pattern on foot. You could also pretend that one of your students has done the activity before. You could say, Sally here has had 3 extra lessons and has been, let's say you're learning how to post, and has been, or teaching students how to post, and has already learned how to post, so she's going to come out to the rail and demonstrate posting trot for us. You could also have your assistant mount up and demonstrate the activity. The bulk of your lesson is going to be spent in practice. It's really important that your clinic instructors see that you can get a group of riders moving together. The riders and that the riders practice your key skills. This will give you a chance, if you have about 6 minutes of practice, it'll give you a good chance to demonstrate your own good teaching and your group control. A couple of things about teaching. I think that good teaching is both positive or encouraging comments like, oh, you're sitting up nice and straight today, good heels down, excellent looking forward, you did a great job on your spacing, and also corrective actions, and these are specific things that a rider can do to improve their performance. So rather than watch your spacing, because a rider might be watching their spacing but not know that it's maybe too short a distance to the next horse, you could say, gently pull back on the reins and then hands forward. When you look ahead, make sure you can see the ears of the horse in front of you. Another thing with good teaching and group control I mentioned is preparatory commands in your instruction. So that's 1, 2, 3, and stop. So giving them warning. Okay, when you're finished your lesson, it's really important to have a conclusion. This is where you get to reinforce your learning. I'm a teacher by trade, and old teacher told me a great trick. She said, you know, when you're teaching something, if you want people to remember it, tell them what you're going to teach them. In our lesson, that's our introduction. Teach them, and then tell them what you taught them. So that's how we reinforce our learning. It also gives you a chance to ask riders if they have questions or comments. And I always, as an instructor, you don't have to do this, I like to thank my riders. So an example of a conclusion could be this. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for coming today. Today we worked on our middle and balance. I saw some huge improvements, particularly as we were riding our trot-halt transitions. I saw everyone staying exactly with their horse's center of gravity. Like I said, this is a key to all of our advanced riding. Does anyone have any comments or questions from today? Okay, thank you. So it doesn't have to be long, it just has to be. All right, so how are you evaluated? It's evaluated by everyone that's involved in the clinic. So if you taught the lesson, typically you're the person that's going to evaluate your lesson first, followed by an assistant that you would have chosen, so someone who is assisting you with your lesson, the other clinic participants, and lastly the clinic staff. And the process for this feedback is it's going to provide an opportunity to learn, not just for yourself, but for all the other clinic participants. So your learning isn't just going to be in your own 4 lessons. You'll be learning, listening to the evaluation of all the other lessons. So you'll be seeing lots of different ways of teaching things, and you'll be learning from everything that's said. Your clinic staff are going to give you some very specific guidelines for evaluation. Just a couple of quick things that I like is sometimes what I will do is I will ask participants to give a positive comment and a constructive comment so that everyone's expecting both ends of that stick. And I'm looking for people to say more than just, I liked it. I'm looking for them to give a bit more information. So I liked when you talked about the fact that some riders might be scared since they're doing this for the first time, and you were really reassuring. So I didn't like it could become, I'm concerned that you talked about riders being scared because some riders could become worried about their safety. Now you notice that there's a positive and a constructive comment related to the same issue. There's no right or wrong feedback, but we're looking for something more than just good or I didn't like it. All right, time for story. So the level of CHA certification is dependent upon your skill in the 5 evaluation areas. And the area of the lowest skill could be a limiting factor. So this is a profile for Sam, and Sam competes in eventing, which is cross-country jumping, stadium jumping, and dressage, and he competes at a pretty high level. And his friends kept asking him to teach him, and he decided to take an instructor clinic so that he'd be better prepared to teach eventing. He'd done a bit of teaching with his own horse prior to attending the clinic, and he really enjoyed teaching. So he came to this clinic, and he was given a level 1 topic to teach, and he thought that it wouldn't be challenging, so he didn't prepare, didn't want to use an assistant. It took him 10 minutes to do a tack check and get the riders moving. And then he was very frustrated because his fellow clinic participants were role-playing level 1 riders who couldn't steer effectively. His lesson was first ride, stop, start, steer. And a couple of things, he wasn't used to managing so many horses and riders, and he had never taught a beginner rider. So he was very frustrated. He thought people were sabotaging him, and they weren't. So what he did is he discussed his lesson with myself and the other clinic instructor, and he realized that teaching a group of beginner riders is a totally different skill set than teaching an advanced rider. So what he did is he watched the remaining lessons that day. We actually had him sit out to be on the rail watching the lessons to see how other people handled situations like that. And the next day he taught his lesson again, but he planned it very carefully. He used an assistant. He had an introduction. He had keywords. He got people moving within 5 minutes. And at the end of his conclusion, all the other instructor candidates praised him for his great level 1 lesson. So initially his group control was very low, and during the clinic he was able to demonstrate in his remaining lessons very high group control, and he taught some amazing level 3 and 4 lessons, and he ended up certifying level 4 English, which was his goal coming into the clinic. Okay, so safety. Every CHA instructor is going to pass. Oh, please, Christy.
Do you mind? And correct me if I'm wrong. Have we spoken about the 15-minute structure and the fast-forward structure yet?
No, I think I forgot to do that. Please go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I just noticed that you said that 10-minute. And, you know, most riding lessons are an hour in length. Some of those include your groundwork and your saddling and unsaddling and those types of things. Well, in the interest of time, at a CHA clinic, you will have no more normally than 10 in attendance at a clinic, and of course the 2 people that are doing the evaluation. So to be able to get that done within that 40-hour time frame, we do what's called a 15-minute lesson. Your clinic staff will do a sample lesson for you before the week even begins, so you'll understand what that structure looks like. But basically, if you have, let's say, a group of 5 riders and you're doing first trot with them, you can go ahead and show us what you would do first trot-wise from, let's say, cone to cone down the long side with your assistant staying with the group and you taking one person out at a time and doing that after you've done a warm-up. And then you can fast-forward the rest of the group and say, now that the first 2 have done it, we're going to fast-forward, the rest have done it, now we're going to reverse and go the other way. And then you can have 2 different ones do it the other way, and then you can say again, now we're fast-forwarding the other 3. So that's how we get it done. And on that sample lesson that is not only on our website but also on the YouTube channel, you can kind of see what that fast forward looks like. Because sometimes for your first lesson that might hold you up a little bit. So again, that first lesson is kind of a give-me to get going on the whole idea of the 15-minute structure and those types of things. So I just wanted to jump in there and explain that real quick.
Thanks, Christy. I really appreciate that. I know we talked about that, but that's good. I'm glad that you did that. Jump in anytime, because that's useful to me. So our students use us as their role model. They use their instructor as a role model. And CHA wants you as a CHA certified instructor to model good safety practices for your students. So that means that during a clinic, you want to demonstrate good safety practices, not just in your lesson, but also in other people's lessons, on the ground, in the barn, anytime you're around the horses. So I mentioned before a 5-point safety checklist. You want to check the environment. Is the gate closed? Is there a jacket flapping on the fence? Are there things in the arena that the horses could step on or riders could walk over? Or is the environment good, conducive to riding? Is there a storm coming in? What does the horse look like? Did the horse walk in looking lame? Do you have a mare that's in season that's making eyes at a gelding? Does the horse check in ready to work? Is the rider checked in ready to work? Is their helmet done up? Do they have appropriate footwear or safety stirrups? Is their helmet adjusted correctly? And again, CHA has videos on those on the CHA YouTube channel. So things that will help you with that. Is the tack adjusted correctly, and did you look at all the different points of wear and tear? On a Western bridle, there's all the Chicago screws to check too. It's not fun having your bridle fall off because your screw is loose. It's not fun having a screw loose regardless. Is the horse-rider combination suitable? So here's 2 examples of suitable combinations of horses and riders. Not so certain that that English horse would be a good match for our young Western boy there. All right, so one thing that we can do to develop our safety is to look for safety issues. So I'm going to just get people to type into the question box here, and I'm wondering if for picture 1, if you can tell me some of the safety issues. So it could be environment, horses, riders. You can just go ahead and type into that question area.
One of them says the horses might strike at one another.
Yes, they could. And what typically happens after the horses strike at one another?
Squealing.
Squealing, and then yes, either separating or more together. It either amplifies or sometimes they'll even whirl and disappear.
PK says horses nose to nose.
Mm-hmm.
Claudia says riders allowing horses to visit, which can result in, just like we talked about, the screaming.
That's right. These are both mares, and yes, I think that that is definitely a risk there. What would you tell your riders at this point if you turned around and saw 2 of your riders that are waiting, if you saw them like this?
You have people noticing the dogs in the back, by the way.
Oh,
people.
Good. Good, guys. Good eyes. You know what's funny, Christy? I missed the dog when I picked this picture.
Oh, and then you notice later one more thing. That's good.
Yeah, I did.
Yes, you have tons of people talking about the dog. And then Julie also talks about, looks like there is some items on the ground behind the black horse, like where the dog is lying underneath.
That is a bench, and there are items sitting on that bench, yes. There's a helmet and there's a lunge line. So that is true.
You have a good crew today. They're catching things really well.
Oh, I like this. You guys are great. Okay. Now, number 2. What's the problem in number 2, or is there?
Aha, Claudia says riders look like they might not be prepared to ride at this level.
Okay. So the rider might...
more control of the horse, which is very good as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's Eleanor. And then we have seems a bit forward and unbalanced. And then Nicole says the horse looks irritated.
Yeah, that horse has not got a very happy expression on her face. Interestingly, that's the same horse that was pictured with that English rider. What's happened here is that this rider has just bounced down quite hard on her back. And you're right, I think that horse-rider combination is not good for this activity.
Yes, we had rider looks unprepared to ride at the canter. The horse doesn't look happy with ears back, tail swishing, and looks rushed. Legs on the rider look like they are back too far and they're throwing her forward some. So all very good comments. Good.
Okay. All right, so we've got a couple more spot the risks here. Number 3.
Is there a horse at the end of that rope?
Thankfully, no, there is no horse at the end of that rope.
The rope is too long.
Yeah. Good.
The rope is tied very loose.
It is. Here's a question for people. Is it a problem to have a lead rope tied to your arena wall? This is an arena wall, so that's not obvious from the picture.
We have arena. Let's see. The rope should not be tied in the arena where it could get tangled in a horse's legs.
Absolutely. If a horse kicked it.
But or arm of a person can also get caught in the loop if it is left up during a riding lesson.
That's right. That's a horrific accident, I'd bet. I'm thankfully have never seen that. But I could imagine a stirrup or a piece of horse or a piece of anything getting caught in that loop. Now, Christy and I talked about this. This is my barn, and we regularly do have to tie horses to the wall. I had a conniption when I saw that and took a picture of it and then promptly fixed it. And what I did is I tied that rope much shorter, much tighter, right up against the wall, and then tucked the extra end just right up onto that ledge. Now, if I had done that, is that a problem? What's your opinion, everyone, on safety there? If that rope was nice and short and that end was all tucked up?
And then when everyone's done, I'm going to answer too.
Okay.
But I'm not going to type it. Aha, here we go. Claudia, if it does not fall down, but best not be there in the first place.
Okay.
Arena and safely secured out of the way, I think it might be okay. As long as it is out of the working area, and safely secured, I think it might be okay.
Okay, good. Okay. What's your take on that, Christy?
I see both of the comments that were just put up, but I would just vie on the side of don't tie your horse in the arena like this. Have a separate tying place outside of the arena so you just don't have to worry about it. Because what if a hoof pick accidentally got stuck in the sand and got buried while you were picking the horse's hooves, and now it's stuck and now it does something as the horse steps on it or what have you. So that would be my 2 cents.
Right, and the way that we actually do use this is that our arena is used to stage our trail rides. So if we have a ride of 6 riders, we might bring in 4 horses, so they're saddled, bridled, ready to go. They've got their halters on. We attach them to their halters, and they may only wait there for a couple of minutes until we pull them off the wall to mount them.
And I love this, Laura, because this is a good example of there is no CHA way. It's safe, effective, and fun. So can you justify and validate why you do something and how the safety comes into play, then you're okay.
Yeah. For me, it's safer to have the horses on the wall, well spaced, than to have the beginner trail riders holding the horses waiting while we assist them in the saddle. That's a great point, Christy. All right, number 4. And if you want to comment on any riders, you can count the half a horse that we can see in the picture as rider 1, and the full horse there is number 2. So you can comment on anything that you see there.
I want to mention one more thing as people are typing in on this one. Jenna had a great response. She said, is it a quick release knot? She wanted to make sure on that number 3. So some of the ones now. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think that one was. I think that was someone that was in a hurry that did that and didn't even pay attention to what they were doing. But I know that I always use a quick release knot, and I certainly teach that to my staff and students.
So that was great, Jenna. And then going on into the next slide, we've got Claudia with that photo thinking horse 3 and 4 are too close. Julie also feels the same way. Melissa feels rides spread out. Some are too close, some are too far. Is there a side guide on this particular ride?
Okay, those are good questions. These are people that have all passed their rider 2, and they are on a trail. This is an advanced day camp. I turned around to take a picture, and I was astonished to see them like this. I believe, yes, the person at the very end there is an even more advanced student. So she's a jumping student that's volunteering her time on this ride. So I would have expected.
Comment too, Laura, to make. When you are leading a trail ride, the one in front needs to primarily just know where they're going and be able to stop the line if there's an incident, whereas that rider in back, that's your main rider that needs to have the most experience. They need to be able to correct position corrections and do those types of things. Very important. Nicole mentioned riders 5 and 6 are far back, and she has personally run into problems, of course, is trying to play catch-up. And then Julie wanted to make sure there was an assistant, who was helping, and that Claudia did mention that the trail boss should be in the back.
There you go. So I probably should have been in the back. What I didn't want is my advanced rider to decide it was really fun to go trotting without appropriate warning. So those are good points. All right, our last spot the risk, and I think it's just loaded for most people here. So here I am in the back this time.
Claudia's comment, riders are too close together and you can't see the middle rider.
Good.
And everybody else seems to like it.
Okay. Just a comment on that, and this again reflects our different environments. We're about to go onto a single file only trail through the bush. I live in northwestern Ontario, and most of my trails are bush. But you're right, it would be much more convenient if I had just moved my horse off to the side slightly. I'd have a much better view of all the riders when I get a chance to do that. Look at this young gentleman's feet for a sec. Look at the height of his feet. And what you'll discover, even though he's sitting in the middle of his horse, one of his stirrups is quite a bit lower than the other. This is going to cause the rider, he's going to put more weight on his right leg there, and he could pull the saddle off center. And if that horse was ever to startle, he would be unbalanced and much more in risk of a fall than a rider whose stirrups are even.
Yes, so, right before you started talking, Laura, Melissa did say first rider has uneven stirrups, and Julie commented right stirrup looks too long for that rider.
Oh, good. Good job. This horse here that he's on sometimes will stand with one leg cocked, so I think that she was hip shot when we checked her stirrups, and so the stirrups looked even, but her hips weren't even. So that's a little trick when you're checking your rider's stirrup length, is actually to check that the horse is somewhat square. Okay, good job, guys. Really good eye for safety here. And that's something you can do. You can just keep looking, keep your eyes open, keep always sort of, if you have safety in the back of your mind as you're preparing for your clinic, you're going to do really well. And the answers that you guys have given us are spot on today.
Yeah, Julie did one more comment I just want to mention before we move on, Laura. She was commenting, she was worried that perhaps the helmet was unbuckled. It looks like there was a flap flopping, and uneven stirrups may also cause discomfort to his knee joint, says Eleanor.
Good point. Good point. Yes, that helmet was done up. I remember that rider. The long flap is that it was just the excess of the helmet, but very, very good mention. And particularly, yeah, I know I hate when I get people partway through a ride. I'll often ask people if anyone's knees are sore. And often the back rider will hop down, tie up her horse, and deal with that. We've got a staging area where we can do that. Okay, so time for another story. This is Shirley. So you can certify in 2 disciplines, in English and Western, in the same clinic, and you don't have to have the same evaluation profile in each. Shirley is a retired teacher, and she rode as a youth, and she competed at local horse shows. So she had some pictures of herself in those shows. It was hunter competitions, and she had some ribbons, and she and her partner purchased a farm when they retired. And she wanted to run a business providing lessons and programs for area youth. And she was also interested in offering therapeutic riding. And her current riding skill was not as high as it was in her youth. So she contacted CHA, and since she was able to provide photos and proof of her past skill, she actually was able to obtain special consideration in recognition of her previous skill. So Shirley no longer wished to jump. She was still fit and active, but she didn't want to demonstrate that she was, a level 4 rider. She wanted to say, here, these are my credentials. And she obtained some prior learning recognition for that from CHA. Now, as a teacher, she was really lucky because she was used to not only being evaluated, but she was also used to the whole lesson planning, controlling a group. So she found that part easy. She told me that she'd found the clinic quite tiring, but she had a great time. She learned a lot from the other participants, and her goal was to certify as a level 3 English and level 1 Western instructor, and she achieved that goal within that clinic. Okay, we are pretty much at the end of presentation. Just want to tell you a few things here. As you're preparing for a clinic, assess your own skills with respect to the CHA levels. If there's something that's a weak area, by all means you can go and get lessons in that area. The CHA website and the handout that we'll be sending you later is going to have a list of CHA instructors on and how to find CHA instructors in your area. Practice lessons, practice those evaluation lessons, practice that introduction to your lesson. And you don't have to do it, some people say, well, I don't have access to a barn, I don't have access to a facility, I don't have access to guinea pigs. Do it in front of a mirror. Our brain doesn't really recognize the difference between a rehearsal in our head and doing it for real. So the fact that you're practicing those things, even if it's in front of a mirror, is going to be immensely useful to you. Read, use other resources, use the CHA instructor channel on YouTube. and then go ahead and you can find clinics on the CHA website. You're going to book your clinic directly with the clinic host, and then they can send you more information on your clinic and what to bring. Christy, what else should we say here?
I think that you've mentioned most of the things. Most of the time, we are not able to put up clinics until, of course, the host site sends us the information that they need. So make sure that you look on our website at past years. Don't just look at 2014. Look at 13, look at 12, and if you see a host site that's either near you or at a place where you want to get on an airplane and go ahead and contact that host site and see if they might be doing a clinic this year, and if so, when it is. But just know that until it's officially on our website, it may or may not be going on, so you will want to keep double-checking and making sure that it is there.
Oh, wonderful. This is a great time. If anyone has any questions, by all means, type them in. Would it be possible to get an outline and email to be used for notes? Yes, actually what we're going to have is we're going to have this entire webinar presentation available on that CHA YouTube channel, so you'll be able to watch it again, and there will be a handout with extra links that we'll be sending to you. So thank you for that question.
Yes, everyone who has an email address with us that they put into our website when you registered for the webinar, and for those that weren't able to make it today, maybe they got the wrong time zone, or maybe something came up with weather or what have you, we will be sending out an email the middle of next week that gives you all the links that we talked about, like the YouTube channel and some of the other things that Laura went over today, plus the link to this so that people can listen to it at any time and watch it when it's convenient for them.
Okay, thanks. And I just want to wish you all the very best in your clinic, the very best with your lessons, and may all your riding be safe, fun, and effective. Thank you for coming today. You guys are going to do really well, and really appreciate your involvement with CHA.
And thank you very much, everyone. If you have any other questions, you can certainly email myself at clandwehr, Landwehr, at our website, which is cha-ahse.org, or you can also email office at our website address, and we will go ahead and answer any questions you might have. And you can also call us at 859-259-3399, and we look forward to seeing you at a clinic very, very soon. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Christy.